what significant event happened on December 1st, 1955?
Your birthday.
Oh, me too.
You've been here before.
We were there before. But usually the question comes up, Rosa Parks, all of the above. And I'll tell them, no, something more important than that, and it was about me. It was my birthday. I was 8 years old. And of course, being 8 and it's your birthday, you're thinking all of this hoopla and excitement in the air. It's all about you. You know, they're planning a party, whatever the case may be. Only to find out, no, this is not about you. This is about the birth of something much larger than you, which was the birth of the modern civil rights movement. I say that this time I'm going to be flip-flopping because I'm piggybacking up a lot of the questions that you asked, a lot of the responses that she gave you, because of the fact that when she's speaking in terms of her child, of children, that's why I wrote the book, because I'm the child. I'm the child watching all of this. You asked the question, somebody back there asked the question about what did your children think, or did you make a decision to do that? And just watching these adults, they didn't make the decisions, it just had to be done. There was nothing about going backwards. It was always about moving forward to reach this particular goal. And by watching them, as she mentioned about the children, when you ask that question about did you teach your children, you don't have to teach them. They're watching, you set the example. So we are watching the adults make this move. Be courageous. You have no choice except to go along. I know you didn't think you were going to say, I refuse to go along with you. No, that wasn't going to happen. But you're watching these people. You're watching them go through bombings. You're watching them be defiant, not in a negative way. I mean, just defiant for the law. You're watching the people go into protest, organized protest, into meetings. This was not a reactionary event, it was a responsive event. And the difference between those two is reactionary is just that. You're going to react, that's violence. The responsorial way was more thoughtful. You have to plan. That's one of the things we worry about young people today when they're wanting to plan. What do I do? Because trust me, as a young person growing up through that, I'm growing through it, feeling that same thing all over again. That was the reason to write the book, because I wanted people to understand children were alive during this. We watched all this. We had to live through all of this. And in my case, I lived through the 3 major events. As Ray said today, we had the bus boycott, then we had to go through the Freedom Riders, then we had to go through the Selma Montgomery March, and I'm growing up as all of this is going from the time I'm 8, you know, having a happy-go-lucky life playing until the bomb goes off at the King Parsonage, you know, during the boycott time, and your whole life changes. That's the end of that. You know, now it's, you become a little protester, okay? It was 4 of us all together. I'm second in line. But you become that protester, and you're watching. And I mean, I'm serious. They were just to watch it. I can't explain it because I feel it in me. You know, you're wondering, who are you at this point? You're asking yourself, who am I? Where did I get this drive from? And it comes from those people that have gone, you know, before you. You can't explain it other than that. It's in you. You can fight it all you want to, but as you said, it's God-driven. It's just in you. But giving you a little background on the experiences of that time, as you said, with the boycott, we had to go through the bombings as well. It was an amazing thing to see 50,000 people just stick together like this. Much of the people that you read about with the boycott, along with Reverend Gratz and those, the King family, the Abernathy family, Miss Georgia Gilmore, Rufus Lewis, Aurelia Browder, Johnny Carr, I know I'm missing somebody. All those people live right there in Centennial Hill where you were. Right there, I mean, in walking distance, marker after marker after marker after marker after marker. Okay, so these are the people that stuck together. Another thing was people would ask, students would ask, was there that divide, you know, the divide in the black community? And I tell them no. You know, the struggle wasn't about socioeconomics. The struggle was about black and white. The law itself, equality, justice. Money could not buy you a ticket, a seat on that bus. I don't care how much money you had, you couldn't sit in front. You could not go to a restaurant, you couldn't go to a bathroom, you couldn't drink from this water fountain. So that had absolutely nothing to do with it. But the people that did have the means, you could see they were the ones that would help provide cars, provide the transportation, or whatever the case may be, whatever needs needed to be done. you could see that the community coming together. And I witnessed that at the age of 8. There was one friend of mine, peer friend of mine, that mentioned to me just recently. She said, "You know, we're the last ones that can speak on this, about the boycott." And I said, "You know, we're right. My age group is the last of the eyewitnesses of the boycott, okay? Nobody younger than me was there. They weren't born yet, so they can't speak about what they saw. And even those of us that are my age can only speak from that child's point of view. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's imperative that I tell you what I know. It really is, because otherwise you won't get it firsthand. You're going to get TV, movies, you're going to get Hollywood movies. When we look at them, we just cringe because we're seeing you miss one little part that destroyed the entire story. And if you cringe while you're watching the movie, think of what it was like to really be here to witness this kind of thing, okay? As I said, bombings that would occur. That same night that she mentioned the bomb did not go off for the Gratz home, there was also a set of dynamite that was on the King's porch. Not the initial one that went off that did blow up his house, but another one. You saw where we live in comparison to that house. So if you get bombed, we get bombed, pretty much. We get the repercussions of that. That particular night, there were about 12 sticks of dynamite. Did not go off. We were staying next door, that big white house. I don't know if you pay any attention. That was my grandmother's house, and my sister and I were over there. And the bomb did go off across the street. There were plenty of houses across the street. Gentrification came and wiped out our neighborhoods, okay? Cab stand was across the street. One of the major cab stands that provided transportation for the riders was bombed. That did go off. Windows shattered all around me. I was, again, 8 years old. Windows are shattering all around me. So all I heard was glass breaking, 14 windows in that house. It took me a long time to get over the sound of breaking glass. Just really a long time to get over that. And that's what I meant when I said children are still stuck with this. There were no counselors, to help you to live with this. We all know how the boycott ended, so I won't go into that history. We pretty much know that. But fast forward through protests and sit-ins and all of that from Alabama State, and we're watching them. And you saw where Jackson Street is. You saw where Alabama State is. So they're marching in front of our house going downtown. So you're always seeing these protests and things that are going on. But we fast forward to 1961. I'm now 13, okay? May 13. I'm in the 8th grade. I'm supposed to be graduating from the 8th grade to go to high school. I'm all excited about this, okay? Freedom Riders come into the Greyhound bus station. That's John Lewis and all included. And I'm going to bring this up so we can talk about this as well. John Lewis and all included. You can look at it when you get through. They get into the Greyhound bus station. I think Dorothy Walker or Mary might have told you this. Did you all do the tour? Down there you just went through. So they may have given you that story of them coming down there and being so badly beaten at the Greyhound bus station by a mob. That same mob surrounded the church that night. They hid actually in choir robes so that they could mix in with the group in case the mob came through. They wouldn't be singled out, and picked out for whatever, because they want to. That comes straight from Bernard Lafayette's and their mouths, Freedom Riders' mouths. At that time, there was only maybe about 17 or 18 of them that came on that first bus. They were the ones that were so badly beaten. That same mob surrounded the church. You had about 1,500 people in the church, because this was a mass meeting. They were trying to prepare, where are we going to go from here to get prepared to go to Jackson, Mississippi, okay? So you're thinking about all this mob, they're out there ready to kill you, they're turning over cars, they've got all of these handmade weapons and sticks and all of these kinds of things. They're breaking the stained glass windows and all in the church. It's now the wee hours of the morning, these people are still trapped, they can't get out. So King calls Robert Kennedy, Attorney General, he federalizes the troops, brings now these people that are pointing guns, they're ready to hit you, now you've got to flip your hat because now you're the National Guard. So you got to come down and protect the same people you want to kill. Put them on the trucks in the wee hours of the morning and bring them to our house. Okay. My sister and I are still trying to find out where was the communication to say, hey, why don't you pack up all these people and bring them into your house? we laugh about that because we said there's no cell phone. So who called who to say, hey, open the doors and let them all come in bleeding and battered, because that's exactly the way they came down the hallway. They came down the hallway tired, beaten, bloodied, battered, exhausted is the best word to use from the events of that day, okay? They stayed there with us for those 4 days. The question is always, how in the world did you feed all those people? They're like, that didn't happen. Y'all couldn't possibly have fed all of those people, because now when I say all those people, I mean the initial group. Then you got buses still coming with more Freedom Riders. When they find out where the safe haven is, they're coming too, along with the leaders that are there, because this is the place for everybody to be, along with the photographers and the videographers that we're finding out that was on the PBS special that my sister and I looked at and went, God, we didn't know all that was going on. Well, we're trying to live our everyday life. We're just going to school. But we were told not to open our mouths. We had no idea that Secret Service or some kind of security was trailing us to school. We didn't know FBI people were out there. All of this we are finding out literally within the past 5-6 years. When did the documentary come out? 2011, so 7 years. In 7 years, we're finding out just how serious this really was, okay? Well, my uncle had a restaurant, so that's how the food was provided. My dad was a pharmacist, so medical care was provided. If you got a chance to come into the house, you can see that my dad had a lunch counter in his original drugstore, and when he moved it, or rather when he changed it, he shut his lunch counter down when my uncle opened a restaurant right next door. Well, all of the fixtures that were in the lunch counter came into our kitchen. So we've got the stools, we've got the counter, we've got the Coca-Cola box, we've got the grill, it's all there. Easy to accommodate. The house itself, very large room. It had just been remodeled to that level, so you didn't have a lot of furniture to take up space. So very open space where the riders could come in and sit. And you see them upstairs in the room doing their strategy sessions, okay? On that, for me, at 13, these are young people coming from college, especially young college guys. They were so cute. That was just the only thing that I could think of was, oh my God, they are so cute. And they were coming from Fisk University, which was my dad's alma mater, which is where we were already programmed to go. So I'm looking at all of them. But you had John Lewis and Diane Nash and Bernard Lafayette and Hank Thomas, and it just goes on, the list goes on. And your leaders, James Farmer and who else?
Dave Dennis there?
Dave Dennis, yes, Dave Dennis. You had Bernard Lafayette, where was that with it? James Farmer, Joseph Lowry, Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, A.D. King, C.T. Vivian, Fred Shuttlesworth, all of these people that are in doing these strategy sessions. For us, these were just the normal people that are always in and out of our house, ergo just a neighbor. You see what I'm saying? To us, it was normal, very, very, very normal. We had no idea that history was in the making. We had no idea these people were going to have their names on airports and on interstates and in books and in movies. That's when it became important to us. It was like, wait a minute, we know all of these people. For instance, the Tuskegee Airmen thing, my dad used to sing that Tuskegee Airmen song, the 99th and Red Tails, over and over and over again. That's how he met Mama. And we knew fight, 99th. We knew that song, and meant nothing to us until the movie came out in the 90s with Lawrence Fishburne on HBO, and there's this picture at the end of the movie. And I'm like, this must have been a big deal. Well, I'm really learning now how to appreciate that, and I noticed that a lot of those that were Tuskegee Airmen, once they got out, especially the officers, became activists. So now it's no surprise to me that my dad was an activist. It is absolutely no surprise to me why he stood for equality and justice. He'd already been through that with that particular deal. But anyway, fast forward from there, 1963, I always like to bring this up, even though that was Birmingham. There was a young girl that I met on our way to Fisk in 1965 who happened to be in the church in 1963, the church bombing. And her name was Carolyn Ma McKinstry. And she had just left those girls down in the basement, went upstairs. She received a phone call that said, "You got 2 minutes." Within the 2 minutes time, the bomb goes off, kills her friends, and all of the above. I say that to say that she wrote a book called While the World Watched. She and I meet each other on the train in 65 going up to Fisk University, and we are comparing notes on who had the most bombings. You know, well, we had bombings out down the street from Martin Luther King. Well, I was in the church, but we had this bombing. You know, it's almost like a one-upmanship, but who was the, hey, you know, I understand this is the 60s as well. But as we got older, I'm fast-forwarding to now, because she wrote her book, and when I read her book, I told her, I said, I had no idea you were struggling like I was with all of that hidden, suppressed feelings that we've both been through. She actually turned into an alcoholic. Now, I'm not exposing anything that's not in her book, because she likes to tell the story. And she had suicide attempts behind all of that, because her friends were killed, and she said nobody ever talks beyond the 4 little girls of all of the people that have shrapnel still in them, you know, that are dealing with mental issues. Nobody talks about that part of the civil rights movement. You see what I'm saying? This is what we want you to get, the collateral damage people that go along with that. So anyway, for me, that was 63, but 64, Civil Rights Bill is passed that summer, July. I'm about to go into my senior year. I already been elected to be president of the student council, you know, so I got a little clout. I can call friends, do this and the other. St. Jude High School, that was my school. We decided to test the waters. You know, the ink is not even dry yet on the bill. Like, okay, let's go. We're gonna see where we're gonna go. Because see, prior to that, segregation days, we used to send my little brother, who looked like he was white, and we would send him in there, go taste that water and tell us what it tastes like. Or go in there and buy us one of those cookies from here to there. Well, now we can actually test the waters, because by law, you cannot stop us. So we go to the drive-in first, get into the drive-in, and mind you, by now, I'm a teenager and have been to mass meetings. I've learned how to do. We've learned how to fall. We learned how to march. We learned how many abreast you're supposed to be on a sidewalk, how many abreast you're supposed to be on the street within the law, do these kinds of things. So we're ready. We are ready to do whatever it is we need to do. Go to the drive-in, we sit in there, my little brother sitting in the front under the steering wheel. Guys, a group of white guys come in and start beating up on him, all of the above. Well, we had some guys in our car too, so as soon as they opened the doors, these other guys left. But we weren't going to leave. So you just knew, you just have to kill us at this point. You really and truly do. That's your mindset. I am not going to let you drive me away from what's rightfully mine. I have a right to be here. The next thing we go to try to sit in at a little diner. It's about 5 of us going downtown. We sit on the stool, and we get the usual, we don't serve this here, you know, the N word here, and we said, okay, that's fine, that's not what we plan to order. So we would just and we waited until they called the police, and of course then we did leave, you know. But you just kept pushing the button, and there was somebody else. Were you all scared at any point? And we would tell them no. I mean, that never throughout the entire civil rights movement did I ever feel fear, ever, 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 ever. And that's always the questions. Well, weren't you scared at one point? And I tell them no, and you're going to hear that answer from so many of us. No, it was just what needed to be done, and that you were like this thing inside of you that's driving you to continuously, you know, to move forward. 1965, I'm now in high school, all set and ready to graduate. I'm 18 this time, 17 rather, turning 18 that December. March, here comes Selma. All the people coming in, marching in from Selma. Well, prior to that famous photo, I don't have it on my phone, but I know you all have seen it, the famous photo of King and John Lewis and some other ministers, albino, locked arm in arm, and you know, they showed you were right there because you saw the Benmore Hotel. That photo's taken right in front of our house. And people say, well, did you see the march? I said, no, because I was at the back of it, marching with them. Because we were 12th grade, that by this time we were going with the crowd. That was not the Selma to Montgomery March. That was the preliminary march. That would happen a week prior to that, to go to the courthouse for Frank Johnson to say, thumbs up, you're safe to go carry out your march. So that's what that was about, okay? But they push it as that, and those little things like that. We tell them they weren't in suits to come to march from Selma, those little things like that. But nonetheless, at least it got people's attention. But when they came in from Selma, I did not march from Selma to Montgomery, but they came to our school, to the grounds at St. Jude High School. And so when they got there, we were out of school and we joined the march the next day to march with them downtown. But I still was down in the group because we wanted to see all these entertainers. John Baez and Sammy Davis Jr., you name it, they were there. They had a makeshift stage. And I remember being the height that I am now, okay, and I was trying to get through this crowd to get to the front. And you know how you say, excuse me, my brother's up there, excuse me. And while I'm trying to get to the front, okay, I'm at armpit level to these people that have just marched 45 miles, okay? And the next thing I know, somebody must have body surfed me out because I was on a brick wall, laid out, okay? But I say that to say, you don't think about these people. There were no cell phones, there were no Reebok shoes, nothing. Their feet were bloody. You know what I'm saying? They were marching for a purpose, determination. It was all about being determined to get what's rightfully ours. I mean, really, just driven by determination. But that next morning, of course, we all gathered, we got in the crowd, we all marched downtown, for the official Montgomery portion of the Selma Montgomery March. So check that out. I've already done all of these things. Like you said, I get to Fisk, having a great time, all of the above, Snickers on campus, hey, Black Power, now we really getting not necessarily militant just yet. I'm on my way though, because April 4th, 1968, we got word that he had been assassinated. Now, mind you, this is like my uncle. I know him, okay? Watched him after he got stabbed with that letter opening, seen him with the gauze wrapped around him, all of this kind of growing up with you, hugging and all of this kind of stuff. I was living in a dorm on campus that sat on a corner. It was formerly a male dorm, but now it's a female dorm. And so we had access, just to kind of go up and down. A group of us got onto the roof. That night, tear gas is everywhere. Nashville is exploding. The campus is exploding. We are on the roof and making Molotov cocktails. And I don't want to see a white person, period, because I have had it up to here with you people. Had it. That was the first time I had felt hate in my heart. Much like, you remember when Rodney King got killed and Reginald Denny, they yanked him out. They weren't after Reginald Denny. They were after what he symbolized, just a white guy that they just wanted to hurt. That's the only time in my life that I've ever felt pure hate. Just hate. You understand? And like Mrs. Grad said, you just have to pray it away. You just really have to just pray all of that away, because that's just the way that it was. But we got all of that, got over all of that, graduate, I get married, I move up to Maryland, to Suitland, Maryland, which is like that far from Laurel, Maryland in 1972. And then who's in Laurel, Maryland in 1972? George Wallace. Well, I've had my fill of George Wallace. Like, oh my God, I don't want to hear his name ever again, because he was just, we had to pass his house every day to go to school. More speeding tickets because they harassed us going back and forth to school. But anyway, and then he got shot. And I remember saying very clearly in my mind, good, now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. Because you have caused so many people to die and get hurt. You understand? But like she said, you got to take it away from you. You got to forgive yourself. And a lot of people would say, well, maybe he had such a change of heart. Well, you would have changed your heart too if you got to depend on people to push you around. You see, I can't go with that one. Maybe I'm wrong for that, but I still don't think that. I really and truly don't think that. But that was just the way that things were. As far as what I do now, my thing is health disparities. I'm just always about the unevenness and inequality in your health care. But as far as teaching my children, as you can see, I got a son back in the back, I got a grandson right here. They are finally learning, just like we did, that, hey, what your parents did or your grandparents did really was a big deal. We just didn't, we just didn't think that it was a big deal. But I'm gonna stop it at there and see if you got any questions, because I know we're pushed on time.
So you talked a little bit about even figuring out your own history decades after it happened, like especially like with your father and then seeing the Tuskegee Airmen movie. And so for the rest of us, we're kind of learning this history again decades after it happened, even years after we first kind of touched on it in school. And this is our first chance to really go in depth and see these things. And so what do you recommend is the best way for people our age to really, get to understand what really happened beyond just the big name?
I don't think you'll ever really understand. This is something you have to experience. You can learn everything that you need to learn. There was a group of young high school students, as a matter of fact, that came and we were talking with them. I forgot where they were from, but this one guy was just so filled with anger. And he said, he talked to me at the end, he said, I just don't know what to do. I'm so angry. And this was with the present administration, all of this stuff going on. And I said, you need to just change that word anger to passion. Don't lose the feeling. Switch the name. Because if you're angry, again, you're going to react. If you're passionate about something, you'll study it to find out how to change it. As far as understanding exactly what we went through, you'll never be able to walk in our shoes. Hopefully you never have to be able to walk in our shoes, ever, ever. But at the same time, you'll hear my generation especially, and some of Mrs. Gratz, but definitely my generation, because we were the fighters, the young people coming up, and we're seeing it all over again. And we're seeing it with having our grandson in particular and grandchildren, not so much our children, but our grandchildren having to deal with this. Because like my son said to me, Mama, you didn't prepare us for this. He said, we didn't know anything, and that's because we thought we had it made. They have great friends. They were like this with their friends, integrated schools and all of the above. Then it turns right back around now, grandson, a different wave. And now he's got to learn all of this, That's the best way that I can answer that. For you, I think you're doing absolutely the right thing by going on these pilgrimages, listening to people, first-hand people, if you can take it, and watch documentaries versus movies, okay? Actually study the documentaries and make sure it's a quality one so that you can see. And that's the best way that you can learn about it. It's not like me trying to learn about slavery. I'll never understand what that was like. Hopefully I never will have to, but I can respect the courage that it took for these people, the strength that it must have taken, the resolve that it must have taken for those people, to endure that. Especially Harriet Tubman. She's just my idol. She really is. Really is. Anybody else? Question?
Now that I know you talked about writing your book, Just a Neighbor, looking back on it now and, talking to us and other people that you come into contact with, giving your firsthand knowledge of your experience, how does it make you feel knowing that your voice is finally out there about, firsthand experience of, Dr. King just being a neighbor and being like an uncle to you and, hearing the news of his assassination and, your relationship with him and his family and everybody else that was involved. So kind of, what are your emotions and your feelings as, a young African-American woman at the time and even now expressing yourself and, recollecting everything that happened?
Well, first it was just excitement. When I wrote the book, it was just exciting. Anybody wanted to buy the book. I don't hear anything I had to say. It was like, I just needed to get it on paper. I didn't even print but a few copies, and now it's in the 6th printing because it was in 2010, and I just, I just got it cathartic. It's on paper in the story. Here it is now, 2018, and now I feel that it's necessary for me to tell the story. Just like I mentioned in the beginning, it's necessary for me to answer any questions that you might have and tell you exactly how I felt. And now I'm looking at it as an adult, as a parent, as a grandparent, and looking at what I have done, would I have made those same choices that my parents had to make, those kinds of things. And that's what I feel now is a tremendous sense of responsibility to carry on for them, to share. It has absolutely nothing to do about fame or wealth. That's when you said, can we videotape it? Yeah, it's a story. It belongs to you. You know, I can't make money off of what happened. That's not what it's all about. You know, if you do, it's contributed back to something that continues to perpetuate this. But for lack of a better answer, that would be it. It's a self-responsibility now to pass it on as I remember it, as clearly as I remember it. Yeah. Anybody else?
You kind of hinted at this when you said the words. It's better to be responsive rather than reactive. But what piece of advice do you have, or you, Ms. Gertz, for contemporary social movements? Things like Me Too, things like Black Lives Matter.
Again, the same thing. You got to educate. See, because everybody now is all into this, and what I'm seeing now, and Ms. Rett might agree with me, is you've got too many people now that want to be a leader. I'm the leader. They really want to be the next Martin Luther King. He didn't plan on being a leader. You see what I'm saying? None of them did. The situation was there, and they didn't just decide, I'm going to be the leader and go through it. This man studied Gandhi. You see what I'm saying? They studied. So in order for you, I don't care whether it's contemporary or not, a movement is a movement is a movement. And you'll see when I sign my book, I always sign, movement creates change. Because that applies to your human body, that applies to anything. If there is no movement, things remain stagnant. You see what I'm saying? So whatever it takes, but it has to be an informed, educated movement, depending on which way you want to go. You cannot not be a strong leader without good followers. You just cannot. You absolutely cannot. Because you'll find yourself just out there, and nothing is worse than a herd mentality. Mm-hmm. Nothing is worse than a herd mentality. There's no strength in that. There's no strength in that. Yeah. Anything else? One more? One more?
I was going to ask, this goes for Mrs. Gritz as well. Like, you both talked about having to really and think over, like, when you were so angry that you didn't know, like, how to get past that. Was there, like, a special prayer or way of meditating that helped either of you get over some of that really, really difficult anger?
Just talking to God. Nothing special. I had no special prayer for me. I'm Catholic. So go to church, say rosaries, whatever the case may be. And being in Catholic school, you automatically know how to deal with these kinds of things. And you also know that it's not normal for you, that it just wasn't a comfortable feeling. And that's what made me understand that this is hate. This is really hate. And you have taken it up to here that you can't take anymore. So you just, for me, it was just prayer. That, I think Ms. Scratch mentioned the same thing. Did you say that? Prayer. Mm-hmm.
Any particular prayer, Ms. Scratch? Any particular
words,
form of praying or meditation?
I don't think the form, we were always in prayer. We never did anything without praying about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And scriptures meant so much,